Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. It is a terrific Tuesday here in the studio as I record, and today I'm going to pick up where I started yesterday. I was going to read Message from Beyond the Beyond. Sounds pretty epic, right? From the book The Psychic Explorer by V. Von Dam. And then I got sort of sidetracked by a review I read that sort of led to another topic that I had bookmarked. To talk about another day, but it felt like at that moment I should switch gears. So here we are. We're back again today. I'm going to pick up where I started yesterday with Message from Beyond the Beyond out of the book The Psychic Explorer by V. Von Dam, as I explained in the previous times I've read from it. And also a little bit yesterday. This is a book that I got a long time ago. I think a pretty obscure book. All about astral projection, out-of-body experiences. And then in the very end of it, there's channelings or messages that the author claims to have received, from, in this case, today's message from Beyond the Beyond. We'll see what that means, right? But, it's like I always say when referencing the whole idea of receiving messages, channelings. I've had, of course, a lot of people on who claim to be channels or mediums and different things like that. And I always more interested in the information than the process itself. I definitely think it's, from what I've seen, a lot of my favorite teachers and so forth claim to be channeling. And it's I don't think it'd be any different than the fact that someone is speaking through a physical body now, whoever it is, the personality, whatever name we give ourselves, right? That if something else might be able to access someone who is woke, who has had a spiritual experience of expansiveness, definitely think it's very, very possible. And, I think we get messages, honestly, from spirit guides and things like that quite regularly. A lot of people claim to have direct contact with those as well, too. So, I find it fun and exciting to explore these things. And I've always enjoyed these messages in this particular book. And I've read a few on previous episodes. If you go and search on positivehead.com in the archives for Psychic Explorer, that's the name of the book, you can find the other messages like from the Earth and the Sun and, the Red Goddess, I believe is one I read already. So, that actually makes me think of something real quick. A little side note is, with like iTunes and some of the different places you can get this podcast, they don't go all the way back to the beginning. Whereas if you go to positivehead.com, I've got 800 plus episodes. You can search the archives from positivehead.com on the podcast page and go back to, all the way to episode 1. So just a little something to throw out there that popped in my head as I was talking about searching. I would recommend doing that if you ever want to do a deep search for a topic. Go to the site. That's the best way to find what is available, searching by particular keywords. All right, before I jump in here to a message from Beyond the Beyond by Vivan Dam, the Psychic Explorer, I want to throw out real quick something that is pretty exciting that's coming up, and that is, wow, I can't believe here we are, 2019. I remember like yesterday, it was like turning to 2000, Y2K. And here we are almost 20 years later. Time, this thing is funny, this time thing. And so what we are going to do, obviously the first of the year is always a great time for a reset in all kinds of ways for people. Probably definitely the most resolution-filled time of the year, I would say. And so what we've decided to do is actually do another Purium transformation / metabolic reset / cleanse, like we originally did. What was that? Last spring, I believe. So 6 months or so ago, maybe longer. Time, once again, who knows, something like that. At least 6 months ago that we did a big group cleanse. And so what Robin Tala, who is amazing sort of mentor with the whole Positive Plant Posse, all the people who've already done it, who've already, been through the cleanse or are, involved as a brand partner or whatnot. He has been absolutely instrumental with everyone in that group, which, by the way, is if you want to join that group, it's Positive Plant Posse. Also, it's a Facebook group, and also Positive Heads, of course, for any of you who aren't on there, is two great places. Positive Heads is all listeners connecting, sharing, etc. And Positive Plant Posse is where people are talking about nutrition and food, and we will definitely go through when this cleanse transformation is happening, beginning on January 2nd, group cleanse, where people can support. You have a 10-day metabolic reset, which I go into great detail how that works on the positivehead.com / transformation page in a video that I did, months back. So, any of you who are interested in doing that, starting on January 2nd, it is, I did my first one 6 months ago, and I've been taking the products every day since. Absolutely love them. You can also, on the transformation page, you can also hear my interview with the founder, Dave Sandoval, if this is all new to you. But really, really excited about that. So if you are going to participate, you probably want to order as soon as possible as far as your, the 40-day ultimate nutrition plan is what most people do, or you can just do the 10 days by itself. I recommend the 40-day. You can start before the 2nd, then come the 2nd, a bunch of people will be doing it all together, and you'll have lots of support and love there. So if you have any questions on any of this, by the way, you can email purium@positivehead.com, and myself or Robin Tala will sort of answer any questions or how you would order or what you should order, because it can be, sometimes people have different questions based off of their own specific needs. So enough about that for now. Just wanted to throw it out there. If you thought about doing it before, January 2nd is the day to kick off the new year. We will be all moving in that healthy direction for 2019. So, all right, let's move right into Message from Beyond the Beyond. Once again, this is the Psychic Explorer by Vivan Dam. Here we go. What can you, a human being, understand of the great beyond? You can touch upon it very briefly during your highest peak experiences, see something of its nature, and that is about it, because it requires a much higher level of evolution to actually participate in the higher domain of life. We are addressing humanity for the first time as those who have gone beyond the inner door into the higher cosmic planes. Our voice is through a series of intermediaries on various planes, because we cannot speak to you directly. We are no longer in your universe. We have been requested to communicate something of our experience. We cannot do this in terms which would mean much to you. Therefore, we will concentrate on pointing out the way for you. You are all adepts, or you would not be reading this. Inside you, deep inside, there lies the God DES, goddess, the supreme and only being. She, is embedded at the center of every atomic particle of your bodies. She breathes through the mechanism of the biological life you use. She awaits your rediscovery of what you are. In this way, you are adepts, although you have yet to become truly adept in the art of living. It is to this end that we would point out the way for you. There are, in truth, many ways, and yet only one way. We do not try to interpret this intellectual, even if you feel you can understand that. See it intuitively. Better yet, see it with power. Each one of you as an individual contains the initial spark of goddess. That is to say that each one of you is a goddess. At present, you are just plain at being human beings, since your attention has been rooted that way. Yet as soon as you see the life, you will see many things which are totally beyond the scope of the average human being to understand or even experience. We are looking for those of you who would like to come and join us. You will have to be fearless because we are dealing with zones of energy which are so potent that you will have a lot of adapting to do, and you will have to abstract yourself completely from the human state. Up here, there is a breathless landscape to be seen. It is a world which spans all of eternity. How can you even begin to grasp what we might mean? Once, millions of your years ago, we were beings not unlike yourselves. Different by all means, yet at a similar stage of evolution to yourselves, even if our experience of it was considered dissimilar. We cannot remember this in detail now. It is way beyond our consideration. But what we can say is that we went through all sorts of cycles of growth, and eventually we broke out of the denser chains of matter. Without that matter, we would never have evolved as we did. And yet there comes a time when it becomes natural to gravitate into the higher spheres. This can be done in a variety of ways, and each way is appropriate to the evolution of the individual involved. Nevertheless, there is only one way for all, regardless of who or where they are. One way which encompasses all other ways. Experiencing yourselves on other planes of existence gives you the perspective you need in order to identify with the higher principles within yourselves. Can you even begin to feel what it is like to be in your goddess consciousness? Can you imagine what this is by way of an experience? Probably not yet. Or anyway, only a few of you have had the necessary peak experiences of this kind, and most of you who have had these have only experienced it for a very brief while. The continuous state of goddess consciousness is staggering. It is like a dawning within, like a sun rising in your being. It propels you into a dimensional state where you recognize yourself as part of that. You see things more clearly than ever before, and yet this clarity is as another veil to the innermost mystery, which is more of a principle than it is a place. The sense of power feels as if it could split you apart, dissolving you into no-thingness in the process. You stand naked in front of infinity. You are powerless and yet filled to the brim with powerful energies. The test wears inward, bringing out of you your special, inherent, and acquired abilities to deal with this state. This is where and when everything which you have learnt as an individual since the beginning of your evolution is synthesized into a whole. And within the vast complex patterns which you harbor, you find what is necessary to keep you alive in this zone of pure life. You are stretched, the term is not entirely figuratively either, to your furthest limits. Those who know something of occult science may be struck by the significance of this statement, for the furthest limits represent the greatest situation of test or initiation. At the highest point, you go beyond into an area which reveals not just psychic visions, but whole concepts of super time and super space. You realize yourself in this way. You acquire the results of this test, i.e., new abilities and a new tolerance to high energies. As you begin to understand and feel and see how you can harness some of the power, then you energize the goddess within into expression. Goddess consciousness cannot be described. It can only be experienced. You take command of the armies, an expression meaning you have fuller control over yourself, and yet you must learn to let go completely as well. This may all sound like a paradox, but at this level, no paradox is experienced. For at the center of all paradoxes, there's only a unity of approach, a dual vision which is a oneness, a realization that all forms are illusionary and yet exist. As you experience one peak after another over a period of time, then you start to find yourself able to predict something of what you will go through at the next peak. And yet each peak is a surprise. You can never know exactly what it is you are going to experience. You bring your information into the dance. That information is merged and then blended with higher energies. Your experience becomes a meeting place for the higher and the lower. You bring your individuality to the spirit, who will see if it is well made, i.e., will test it. And then the spirit imparts itself to you, to your individuality, thus transforming you into a goddess at the conscious level. Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking The Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days, many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic. And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative Ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving. And it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own, as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you. There is the little goddess, soul, and the higher goddess, the monad. The little goddess is an aspect to the higher goddess. The soul contains the individuality, and the monad is the pure spirit in union state. Now they blend together, and the little goddess is as the higher goddess for that peak period, and later as a continuous living state for that individual when he will have departed from the lower planes. This is an experience of elevation. We say this because it is a more appropriate description than test or even initiation. It is an elevation of consciousness into the realms of the goddess. This gives you the access you need to evolve into the farther states. What you have experienced of evolution so far is nothing compared with what you will experience in a greater future. You simply cannot comprehend what we are hinting at. Your consciousness is still at the bottom of the ladder. Your journey into this beyond does not happen overnight. It is a progressive unfoldment of the inner life within you. You are only making the first few steps in roughly the right direction. You will find that the road widens once you are engaged in that way. We mark out some of our words because these are the most significant ones. This permits you to focus your attention on the nature of what is said. By focusing deeply, without prejudice to the issues, you will find that the words are fairly precise clues with regards to what we are trying to bring to your attention. Attention and identification are the 2 keys we want to impress upon you most. It is by identifying with these states that the pulling out of matter is initiated in its final phase. Transcendence comes naturally. It does not need to be forced, except for those who prefer that approach. Transmutation takes place and the lower bodies are dissolved, unless you want to remain in contact with the lower levels for some reason, in which case the lower mental and astral bodies are used as molds for the spirit of the will within. At the moment of transmutation, all your chakras become fused into one, and you become a disembodied strong point of consciousness, capable of taking on form at will, if necessary. The field of energy around this point will nevertheless give off the impression of a ball of light, and this is how you'll be seen by others, especially devas. D-E-V-A-S. Divas. I guess that's another word. Devas? I don't know. There's nothing wrong with forms, providing you are fully conscious of the fact that at the back of all forms lies the formless states, and it is these formless states which permit a much greater expression of freedom and an expansion of perception which leads to new realizations and a heightened consciousness. By now you are relatively well equipped to deal with the seeming abstractions which you will face in the beyond, and by and large you will emerge on the plane with which you have the most affinity, i.e. you will reach a level which corresponds to the prevalent balance of energy within your energy field or aura, higher mind, Buddhic, atmic, or monadic states. You will carry on with your evolution and then eventually anchor yourself on the monadic level in preparation for the greater leap into super universes, of which you will know next to nothing, except that they exist and that they are there to be explored. When the right time comes, you will go through one last life initiation which will propel you into a further state, and this will be the cosmic astral, cosmic mental, or cosmic Buddhic plane, depending on the nature of your evolution. You will go through the smallest hole of all, be tested to the hilt, so that you let go of all past memories and connections with the 7 planes, and then you will be born into the area of the super planes. Those of you with enough intuition may have likened this to the whole process of being born into the physical world in reverse, so to speak. Now you're being born into the spirit's higher worlds. The actuality of this birth cannot be portrayed in a way which would evoke its reality. Therefore, you will just have to take it on trust that such events do occur and that this is the path for you. Along the way, you will have plenty of opportunities to make contact with other high beings and to measure your efforts against those of others and to participate in the cosmic web and derive the information you might need for your own progress and for the fulfillment of your own individual or group projects. By the same token, you will be able to master certain forces which are not at the disposal of human beings, who would not be able to handle them if they were. These will reinforce what is already strong within you, and they will also put you in touch with various creative and interactive agencies, mostly of devic extraction, which will help you establish your line of work, which obviously will have little or nothing to do with survival. Your work is your contribution to the overall unfoldment and progress of the higher evolution. In saying this much, we have glossed over many details which we do not feel would profit you much at this stage in our communication and exchange. In the future, we will review what is happening for you, individually and collectively, and decide exactly what we can do for you, which will help you further, not only to understand what you are going through and what you will go through, but also to appreciate the friendship which will be extended to you by those who are waiting for you to join them. This waiting, it should be mentioned, is part of an organized effort to liberate the planes of those evolutions which are still trapped there. The cosmic scene is highly interactive, and most developments are subject to group process. Therefore, you will be put in touch with your own group, and this group in turn will put you in touch with other groups with which it has affiliations. Then you will see the beauty of the overall group schemes and how each group contributes to the further unfoldment of all the others. You will still have complete individual choice in how you apply yourself on whatever level and for whatever purpose. By this time, you will be fully aligned with the cosmic purpose, and therefore your efforts will be generating or adding to something which is already in motion. Now what we want to talk about is the letting go of all your past experiences, everything which you might wish to cling on to because it is familiar to you. As you progress in your evolution, these matters of transcendence and transmutation, etc., all occur naturally. They are the inescapable result of your will to rejoin the higher races or the goddess within. There are those who wish to escape from this natural scheme, and these from and these form the opponents to the cosmic purpose. These opponents have their own sub-purpose within the overall scheme, and they may seem as devils, but in fact, they have their place and part to play. They test all the evolutions in the process of trying to impede them. These are the selfish ones, those who would thwart anything and everything in order to rule supreme in the lower worlds. They will not relinquish their form-loving habits until the very last moment, when creation will disintegrate, having served its purpose. Some of these opponents are of a very high standard of evolution, and yet they turn their backs on the achievements and concentrate all their energies into holding up whatever can be held up. In this guise, they strengthen the evolutions which are in tune with the cosmic network, and in this respect, they are useful. If, at the end of the road, they refuse to pass into higher spheres, purified of their old habits, they will then be stripped of everything they might wish to hold on to as the material universes collapse and fade away into non-existence. Later, as new universes are formed, they will have the opportunity to grow into the light, for sooner or later, all beings are admitted into the light, regardless of their shady past, yet they must relinquish voluntarily that which they hold to themselves. We understand full well why there are those who want to hold on to the forms and refuse to find themselves projected into higher formless states. Forms themselves have self-preservation program which aims at maintaining their coherency and activity. This is the mystery of matter. It is natural for forms to want to perpetuate themselves regardless of cosmic events. Those who are the allies of matter are not to be seen as enemies, for they have their part to unfold as well. In this way, we would wish to dispel the old notions you might still have with regard to good and evil. This does not excuse the horrors of war which you have experienced over the ages as a human race, nor does it excuse the other acts of degradation and violent abuse which have occurred and still occur now. Conversely, it must be pointed out that many of these shady events are the outcome of personal and group karma, and in that respect, they also can be seen as a cleansing process or an act of balancing old accounts. It is not necessary for these events to occur, for there are other, less strident ways of equalizing old karma, but it does depend on how much you as a human race want to find peaceful ways of resolving your old conflicts. If we take an example which is pertinent to your present situation internationally, there is no need for a great war between the U.S. and the Soviet Union and their respective allies. This book, by the way, was published in the mid-'80s, so that explains that statement. The USA represents one of the three principal forces of spirit, and the Soviet Union represents its complementary opposite force. The United Kingdom and Europe represent a hinge force between the two. It is the United Kingdom and Europe which will end the war of polar opposites between the earthly superpowers, for they will be instrumental in bridging the gap and understanding which is necessary before your world can become politically united, and then expand into space without this old shadow being cast on the lives of millions who would much prefer to live in peace with one another. One of the other reasons we also contact you at this time is because there are so many of you who can take advantage of the special conditions which are in the process of working themselves out towards a new world era. It has always been this case that those who are in the position to do so help out those who are about to go through vast personal transformation as a result of planetary changes. Therefore, we will try and say something of our own experience in much higher states. Since we are not limited by anything which you would or might consider to be a limitation, we feel and perceive the universe we are now part of at a conscious level in a very free manner. We deal not with individual worlds, but with groups of worlds, including the distribution of forces throughout one or even several galaxies. If we said that we are in the process of manifesting a new cosmic order, this would mean very little to you, since you are not even particularly conscious of the existing cosmic order. It is new insofar as it is expanding into areas which so far have been inaccessible to most of us. Or however evolved we might be in a certain light, we still have a long way to go before we achieve what we feel is possible. Before us spans eternity and an infinity. Therefore, why should we be trying to achieve anything in this domain? The answer is simple, because it is there. In a sense, we are much like your mountain climbers who will risk their lives in their attempt to reach a certain summit. To those who are not doing the climbing, the whole enterprise seems unnecessary and even foolish. To the climbers, however, it is a matter of personal joy. And when they reach the summit, they are afforded a view of the world which is breathtaking. Their experience is exhilarating. These moments of personal conquest justify all the efforts and all the relative tribulations of the climb. They sit or stand at the top of their mountain, absorbing the powerful energies of that place. They feel in touch with something which cannot be experienced in any other way. Therefore, try and picture us climbing great sacred mountains, one peak leading to another, forever seeking the great one, the highest summit. We feel alive like your climbers feel alive, except far more so. As we link the consciousness of one world with that of another, and then one galaxy with one or several of its neighbors, and open up new routes of communication between being and being, then our joy is in the re-union of the celestial forces, forces with which we are fully identified. This is what we are attempting to bring to your conscious consideration now. All right. The message from beyond the beyond, pretty powerful, right? It's just like to think of the scope from which this communication is being sent, and that eternity, infinity still like stretches out before them in that perspective. It's mind-boggling. Melt your brain definitely is not something that you can fully wrap your mind around, but yeah, I like a lot of it. I like how talked about, good and evil are not real. It's all, everyone is playing their part. Well, that's it for now. That's today's episode. I loved it. I hope you loved it. Look forward to reading. There's a few more of these messages left. So, yeah, I'll pick them up at some point. Read them as well. Everyone seems to be enjoying these transmissions. With that being said, I do have a track to leave you with. This is Cosmic Quest. The song is called Way Milky. Hope you enjoy. Until next time, journey well. Love you all so much.
Something which is the thinker, the feeler, and the experiencer. Not recognizing that that is itself a thought, feeling, or experience. Some sort of stable entity that sits and watches the world